Hello folks, welcome to Outdoors with Bud. I'm your host, Bud Fields. You know, we've been having a lot of fun with these podcasts, and I've had some really great guests, and I've got some more scheduled for some of the future podcasts. Today I got with me a longtime friend of mine, Mr. Garry Hill. Garry is a representative of the Wildcat Guardians. And so what we want to do today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the organization, and there is memberships available, and maybe some of you folks viewing this podcast would be interested in joining. Garry, I want to welcome you to the podcast. Man, we've got a lot of years of fishing behind us, and hopefully a lot more in front of us.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Butch.
Well, I hope I've got another 80 years of fishing ahead of me because I'm 80 years old now. Okay, Garry, if you would kind of tell us a little bit about the history of the Wildcat Guardians, and uh, we'll just kind of take it from there, talk about some of your projects you guys done in the past and some of the future projects you've got planned. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, the Guardians got officially started in November of 1990. But earlier in that year, we were canoeing on Wildcat Creek. And as we were going along there were three of us paddling along side by side, and we were talking about the cleanup that we'd had with the city of Kokomo sometime earlier in the summer. And one of the guys then said, wouldn't it be great if we could just have something like that going on Wildcat Creek all the time and really clean it up? And that just sparked a whole bunch of us to come up with the idea of forming an organization to take care of it. So we started studying other groups like Friends of Sugar Creek and Friends of White River and other places that we'd heard of already. And then we got together and had a meeting, and one of the girls said, I think we should name this the Wildcat Guardians. Instant vote, and it was named the Wildcat Guardians.
Oh, great.
That was in November of 1990.
Well, for some of the people that may not be aware of it, and we was talking about this before we started filming and everything, can you give the people some information about how long the Wildcat Creek is? A lot of people think it just goes the city limits of Kokomo and then that's it.
Well, the name of Wildcat Creek starts over in western part of, or eastern part of Howard County, where there's a little village called West Liberty. But there's a tributary called Mud Creek and another tributary called, I can't think of the name of it right now, but where they come together is where the name Wildcat Creek starts. And from there, it's, if you look on the maps and measure it, it's 82 miles from there to the Wabash River over on the north side of Lafayette. So it's basically 82 miles long.
Well, I know several years ago I was working in a booth at the Wild Indiana Expo, the outdoor expo that they had at the former Johannick Center in Kokomo, and I was working in a booth with a couple different hunting and fishing sponsors, and these people had a booth set up there, and in between lunch breaks and everything, I would try to go down there, and I met some of the people, and I got to talking about them. And when I was writing for the Kokomo Perspective, I wrote an article about the Wildcat Guardians, and I had that in my column. And golly, it's a lot of fun. And as a kid, of course, I pretty much grew up in Kokomo, and I spent some time on the Wildcat Creek, and I know I was familiar with some of your projects. I know I've seen some pictures on Facebook, and I was even told by a couple of the people that some of the things that you guys was picking up out of the Wabash, or not the Wabash, but the Wildcat Creek, and something like that is to me is just phenomenal, that a group would take on such a thing like that. And I know that you guys have got some upcoming projects that you're planning, and you want to relate some of that for us.
Well, sure. We are always planning for new cleanups. We have done so much of cleanups, so many different cleanups around Kokomo and in the Howard County area, that there's very, very little of the old time trash that was dumped in there a long time ago. We've got nearly all of that removed. But we still get new trash all the time.
Oh yeah.
So we always try to come up with new cleanups. and especially here lately, we've been getting involved with a lot of these local schools
Mm-hmm.
and getting some of the elementary schools and once in a while high schools to get a class full of the kids, 20 or 30 of them, to come
Mm-hmm.
out, and we will take them. We can't really take them out in canoes like we like
Right.
to clean up in the stream,
Mm-hmm.
but we can take them out to places that are right along the creek where there's a lot of what we call road trash
Yeah.
that people throw out there, and things that get blown around during the storms,
Mm-hmm.
and they help us a lot in things like that, where we'll just give them trash bags and gloves, and they'll go out there and just pick up things. But I've got a trailer at home that I keep that's about half the size of this room,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes those kids are so active on picking up the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that we'll completely fill that trailer full of stuff.
Wow,
And
that's
one of
remarkable.
and a really nice thing about that is that whenever we have a cleanup like that, and we always load that in one of the trailers,
Mm-hmm.
but the city of Kokomo will tell us where to take it. We go there and dump it out in the bags and leave it sitting there. City of Kokomo comes out and picks it up and takes it away for
Well,
us.
that's great. Of course, by growing up in Kokomo, I try to do my part of, but I always try to take fish out of the Wildcat Creek. And a
Oh
lot of
yes,
people don't realize there's some decent fish in the Wildcat Creek.
I love fishing on Wildcat Creek, especially the lower sections downstream from Kokomo.
Mm-hmm.
The every little pool and riffle down through there, all the way to the Wabash River, has lots of smallmouth bass in it,
Oh yeah.
and they are such killers on the end of your rod that it's so much fun. But what we do ask, because we love the smallmouth and we love wildcat, is for Wildcat Creek, if you're out there fishing for smallmouth bass, make it catch and release.
Right.
Catch them and put them back so I can catch them next weekend.
Well, that's the thing about catch and release. A lot of people that, some of the videos and stuff I've done in the past, I'd be out in my boat fishing and I'd catch a bass, and I would acknowledge the fish and give the fish credit and thank the glory of God that I was healthy enough to go out there and enjoy that, and for that fish biting. And then I would release it, and they say, "How's come you're letting it go?" Well, you never know. Maybe tomorrow or the next day, some small kid out there will catch that same fish and have that same enjoyment that I had.
You will.
And it's just part of, it's a lot of fun. I try to make them famous anymore by taking pictures, of them and releasing them. And a lot of the people that I did meet at that outdoor expo, they were very friendly and they were talking to me. Now, most of my fishing was, I have fished out of a canoe somewhat. I've got two grandsons that does a lot of bass fishing, and a lot of my fishing was done with a high power bass boat. And I got one grandson that he does his fishing in kayak. And I don't know very well if I could stay in one of those or not, but it's a lot of fun. But folks, if you've never been on the waterway in the fall of the year, when the leaves start turning all the colors and everything, when they're in full color, it is fantastic. It's just like God was an artist. He created this for everybody to enjoy. But a lot of people, they drive down the road, oh, that's a pretty tree, and that's here or there. But if you're on the water, you can really take your time and enjoy it. And now, just like the Guardians of the Wildcat, or Wildcat Guardians, I keep getting the name backwards. Uh, Tell us about like the membership. If anybody's interested, if you want to contact me, I can give you some contact information. And there are memberships available in the club. And you could tell us like where you guys have your meetings and.
Well, the membership is available to the Wildcat Guardians at all times. I believe they've got it on the website right now, all the information there. It's wildcatguardians.org on the website,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go there and look at that. But I believe you might check to see if I'm wrong. I believe it's $15 for an individual for annual membership, and it's either $20 or $25 for your whole family
Right.
to join as a member. But then that membership, then we have people who put together emails that supply news for us. because we don't put out a newsletter anymore, but we have news that comes out through emails, and every member will get every email that we send out. And then we also have a Facebook thing that people can sign up and get information
Sure.
from us from the Facebook. The members, the ones that are actually members and getting the emails, they'll get a whole lot more information than the ones on Facebook.
Right.
But you can do that.
Well, when I reached out to the Wildcat Guardians about trying to get a representative to come on from a podcast, one of my buddies told me, he said, "Well, I know a guy you need to contact." He says, "Garry Hill." And I thought, well, boy, that name sounds familiar. And I kept racking my brain. Where do I know that name from? Well, I think we probably first crossed trails at the Jim Muscard's Kids Fishing Clinic years ago. And I had heard that they're discontinuing that, but there's another group's going to resurface, bring that back. They are going to have a kids fishing clinic. I think they're going to be changing the name of it, but Josh Trine is the guy. He's going to be replacing John since John retired.
Okay, well, if they are going to change the name, I have already made the suggestion to some of the people. They call it the John Martino Kids Fishing Clinic.
Agreed. John, if you don't know John, you've probably been living under a rock for years. I mean, John is one of the best outdoorsmen around the area. He's been writing outdoor column for the Kokomo Tribune. He's been a personal friend of mine. And would you mind relating that story you was telling me about when you was fishing and John was out there?
Oh,
this
okay.
is great.
Well, I'll tell the short story.
Okay.
It was one morning this was several years ago. In the wintertime, we'd had a snow of 6 or 7 inches, but the next day it was a beautiful day. Still cold, 20 to 25 degrees, but a beautiful sunny day. And John just decided, since he lived only 100 yards away from Wildcat Creek, he was going to go fishing that morning. So he gets everything ready, and he walks over to his front door with his fishing rod in his hand and his hip waders on, and his wife walks up to him and says, "John, you're the craziest guy in town." Well, anyway, when John gets out there, just so happens that the beautiful morning, I get some buddies together, and we're going to go canoeing on Wildcat Creek, and we put in at Stonebreaker Bridge, which is about 3 miles upstream from where John lives. And as we're canoeing down through there, I see a guy waiting and casting a rod and reel. And when I get up closer, I see it's John, and I wave and say hi. And then as we're paddling by him, he just waves, and as we're going by, I see him pull his phone out. And I find out later on, he pulls his phone out, he punches the button, and he calls home and says, "Honey, I'm not the stupidest guy in town."
Now, that's funny, but folks, there's so many good activities and stuff like that. But to me, the outdoor life has been a big part of my life and will be until I'm gone. But is there anything else you'd like to relate to the folks about the Guardians, the Wildcat Guardians, and
Well, one thing I can say about the Guardians and John Martino, because in his earlier days he was the park manager
Right.
for what was back in that time, it was Kokomo Howard County Park and Recreation Department,
right,
and he was the head manager of that at the time when we started the Wildcat Guardians. So we were able to work with John to get him involved in it, and he was actually in the canoes with us in several of our early cleanups, and he was the one that got the process started to where the city of Kokomo would pick up all of our trash. And now, 35 years later, is still the things that he set up for us through the city of Kokomo are
Right.
all still there. So yes, it was.
Well, John's always been a very humble man, and when people would congratulate him, he would always say, if it wasn't for the volunteers, we wouldn't have this event. And John's always been an upfront guy. He's always been honest. And one thing that I want to add about John Martino, I was out there at the kids fishing clinic every night of the program. There was an individual come up and said that they were sorry that they was not as active in the kids fishing clinic, and they offered John a donation, cash donation. John would not accept that. He said, you can deposit this. You know, they had an account set up. And John told me later, he said, if somebody would have seen me take that money and put it in my pocket, somebody would have maybe questioned his integrity. Well, that person would have had to have been very ignorant and not know John at all.
That's right.
But there's been times when people would come up to me and ask me what they could do, and I would suggest it to them. But hey, folks, I had the honor of attending one of the meetings with the organization, and I walked in to Martino's. Didn't really recognize anybody. Some of the past members that I did meet years ago was not there, but I was cordially treated. The people come up, shook my hand, and complimented me on some of my articles, which is very flattering to me. And I tell you, I hope somebody out there is interested, because these people bend over backwards to help beautify that. And golly, I know I've seen like pictures of wash machines and some of that stuff that they've dumped off down there. And you know, some people might say that, well, I was putting that in there as a face attractant, but that is an eyeball sore. But this group, a bunch of fine people, and I would encourage anybody out there that's interested in outdoors to maybe consider picking up a membership. And golly, we could sit here and talk forever about hunting and fishing. I know we could, but I want to thank you once again for coming on the podcast. It's been an honor to have you, and looking forward to crossing trails again out there on the Wildcat Creek. Buddy?
Well, I have one last thing.
Certainly.
One last thing that Wildcat Creek gave to me. It gave me the desire to write things about the stream. And every time I'm leading a trip, for my internet paddling group, I'm writing a story about it later on. But there was one time I was on the Wildcat all by myself, and something came to my mind that I still share with people today. Fall in love with the river, and its music will pull you back from wherever your life may lead you.
Very good. Thank you, buddies. Been an honor having you here.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.